episode number 17 with Mr. John Rowell, one of my favorite people at Gilman. How you doing, John?
I returned the compliment. Thank you, sir. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. We're just back from a little bit of a break, back in school.
Little bit of a break. Yeah.
Students are a little sluggish right now. We're trying to.
Mm-hmm.
How was your form meeting with the seniors? What's the vibe with the seniors?
We were missing a lot of seniors.
We're missing a lot of juniors as well.
Yeah. This is what happens.
They're just ready for another break.
They should have been there. So much valuable information was sent out over the airwave there, so they missed it.
Yeah. Well, I asked my seniors today, or maybe it was my juniors, but I said, what is the vibe in your class? Because as a teacher, I was telling a friend this yesterday. I go to every class and it's my favorite. It's like going to your favorite class every day as a teacher because I'm prepared. I'm ready to go. I love this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They don't feel, some of them don't feel like that. So what is...
They don't?
Oh,
come on.
They're like Mr. Scott's English class. Like, got to read Walt Whitman with Mr. Scott today at 8
that would
a.m.
be like Disney World to me.
I know.
But, that's who we are.
That's the biggest hurdle for me, I think, as a teacher, to wrap my brain around how you couldn't love reading this poem, Walt Whitman.
But that's part of our job, isn't it? To get them to feel that way, to get them to love it.
That is the job.
I feel like I do that a lot. Like, I feel the resistance and I think, let me go at this another way because, by God, you are going to love Walt Whitman.
But by the time you're done with me, yep.
But then maybe they don't, but then the next thing they love.
Yeah.
There's so much that you do in the junior year in English and I say that at the beginning of the year, if you don't love a certain unit or if there's something, you're not really digging, wait, hang in there and do well, but something else is going to come along that's really going to excite you, I think.
Mm-hmm. Don't dismiss English altogether just because you don't like this one poet,
Right. It's all valuable, and there's a reason I'm teaching it, and there's a reason I want you to read it, but I'm not demanding that you love it. I want you to discover it on your own and find the people and the authors and the works that you really do love.
What's worked really well for you this year in your junior English class in terms of the curriculum? Anything home run so far? Hit a home run in that course?
They've just been particularly great this year.
Really?
They've been really receptive and really eager and fun. And they've given it the college try at every juncture. We've done really interesting stuff. We've done a lot of short stories and all-American literature, of course. We've done a musical. We just did Stephen Sondheim's Assassins, which they were all over that.
How'd that one go?
Oh, it went great. I mean, I say to them, I don't think many junior English teachers are teaching Assassins. Mm-hmm. It's a little rough. It's out there. It's a concept musical, and we talk about what that is, so they learn what that is. I say it's Sondheim, so it's intricate. It's wordy. It's fantastic, but they came right along. They loved it, and they're writing their own assassin scene that they're going to insert into the play. So as a
for people who don't know Assassins, what is that about?
Assassins is a musical by Stephen Sondheim and John Weidman that takes a look at not all, but most of the people who tried to assassinate U.S. presidents. Obviously, Lee Harvey Oswald and John Wilkes Booth are the prominent assassins, but then there are people like Sarah Jane Moore and Lynette Fromme and Charles Guiteau and Giuseppe Zangara. I mean, they all have fascinating stories. Sam Bick about how and why they wanted to assassinate a president. 4 were successful, the others weren't. So it puts them all together in a concept musical way. It starts at a shooting gallery, like at a fair, mm-hmm. where the proprietor says, "Come here and kill the president." Mm-hmm. And so my students were pretty, like, they'd never read anything like that before or seen anything like that before. So.
do you guys go deeply into the history of each of these assassins, or is it more like how much history work do you do in terms of who Charles Guiteau was, for instance?
Well, I feel like the musical kind of takes that on unto itself, and I sort of treat it like if you were going to see this in the theater, you might not have done that research. But Sondheim and Weidman did that research, and they've put what's necessary into the play. I do give them some biographical sketches
Mhm.
of some of the assassins, but
Yeah, I think I told you that I was reading this book. I forget exactly what it's called, but it actually started when I did the podcast with, who was it, Brooks Matthews, and we were talking about. I was saying that I was interested in James Garfield. I didn't know much about James
yeah,
Garfield, and I picked up this book about his assassination,
yeah, you
and
were
I'm
telling me this.
learning about Charles Guiteau, and that is one
Oh,
disturbed character.
oh, he's an incredible character in the play. I mean, he's just and what Sondheim and Weidman do is they everybody time travels, so they put assassins together, concept musical, who could not possibly have lived at the same time, and give them scenes together and songs together.
Hmm.
And so Guiteau, at one point tries to seduce Sarah Jane Moore, who tried to assassinate Gerald Ford in the 70s. So they really mix it up and play with. And I think the students thought that was very inventive, which it is, and unusual. And they hadn't encountered anything
I
like that
didn't
before.
know Ford was or tried to be
There were
assassinated.
two attempts, and
Really?
Lynette Fromm, and they were within like 2 or 3 months of each other.
I think did Ford only serve one term too? He was
Yeah.
only there for 4
Yeah,
years.
well, he came in, he replaced Nixon after Nixon
Mm-hmm.
resigned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know about him, but this Guiteau figure, I've recommended this book to a lot of people because, I mean, he went to the White House every single day, and this was when,
Mm.
there was a line out the door for the president to select who would be in his cabinet, and everyone was coming in and
Yeah.
interviewing. I mean, presidents back then would spend hours every day just talking to people and
It's
seeing
remarkable.
who would
Yeah.
be, the foreign relations with France. And this is what this guy
He
Guiteau
wanted to
wanted.
be ambassador to
You want to
France.
be ambassador to France.
Yeah.
And he came to the White House every single day. And finally, they were like, "Look, man, you're not it. We're not selecting you. Go away." And he just developed this
Flipped it, yeah. resentment.
and he was like, "I'm gonna kill Garfield."
He couldn't believe they didn't choose him.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. And
very.
he was an author. He was a published author, and he had been a preacher, and I mean, he just is a fascinating person.
Yeah, they go deep into his background in this book.
Yeah.
So I gotta get
Yeah.
the title, but if you just look it up, it's James Garfield's assassination, and it
Yeah.
goes into how. And the funny slash crazy thing is, and we talked with Beth Knapp about this too, is it wasn't Guiteau really who actually led to the cause of Garfield's death. It was the doctors and people who didn't believe in antiseptic. They were sticking their hands in his wound when he was shot, and that was
Oh, yeah.
actually, I think Guiteau said, "I didn't kill the president, the doctors did,"
Oh. Yeah.
which just wild.
Mm.
But I do want to get to the books you brought in today, because that's one of the
Oh, yeah.
things I want to do on this podcast is have people just recommend books. Like, I have friends who text me all the time, "Jake, you're an English teacher. Give me a book recommendation."
Right. Right.
And I'm like, "Well, I could give you a lot of book recommendations. It depends on what you like and what you're into. Maybe you can watch 5 minutes of the podcast and John Rowell, he's got a ton of books that he loves to read. So
Yes, he does.
what are you reading, or what maybe would you recommend to someone?
Well, I mean, there were 1,000 ways I could have done this. You just said bring a book that maybe has had impact on you. I mean, I could have brought in something I was reading last week, but I sort of went back to my own personal canon, I guess. So, and usually I respond to this question as, as being a writer myself, and when as a writer, I've been asked what authors influence you, and so it was kind of more than I have been asked as a teacher what writers influence you or make you want to teach them, I guess. And they're so related, right? The authors that really influenced me as a fiction writer maybe by default became a lot of the writers that I wanted to introduce into the classroom. And that's exciting because, there's just such a double layer of meaning in terms of how they impact me as a writer, long time ago, informative years, and how they have come into my teaching world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true for both of these. And this is the complete stories of Truman Capote, uh, an enormous influence on me as a writer, and I have brought him into both my senior and junior classrooms. When I teach fiction writing with seniors, I bring him in for different reasons because I think that you can learn so much about the craft by reading some of his work. Um, when I bring him into the junior classroom, we're looking at literature not so much as I mean, we do talk about craft, but not as a way to model your own fiction writing because we're following a whole year's curriculum of American writers and related to American history and all that sort of thing. And I do some chronological work actually. So um, the story of Christmas Memory I think is a story that how could everybody not want to read that? It's
Mm.
just an amazing story. It just influenced me so deeply when I was really starting to write fiction in earnest, and I just went back and read. I had read Breakfast at Tiffany's and some of the other stuff, but I really got into his stories, and there aren't that many because he didn't. He died at 59, and he didn't write much of the last 20 years of his life really. But the early stories and his greatest work was young work.
His most popular story is Breakfast at Tiffany's, correct?
Well, I think his most famous book is In Cold Blood, but
Oh yeah.
that's because he invented kind of a new form of a novel, right? It's fiction and it's journalism and it's a hybrid, and um,
That one is crazy,
it's yeah,
and
it's a
I think
great book.
you actually influenced me to read that my first year here at Gilman, In Cold Blood.
Oh yeah,
Oh my gosh, that
yeah,
was
it's tough, but I don't teach that, but our colleague
yep.
does. But the stories are what for me are really what Capote did best.
When did you pick up Capote for the first time?
Hmm. I think I probably read Breakfast at Tiffany's when I was in high school for the first time, and then I've read it many times since. I didn't discover A Christmas Memory actually until I was, an adult and really starting to want to write. It had just escaped me. But when I actually heard somebody read it in a sort of um, seasonal Christmas reading program that I went to, and I remember he exactly the place he started because it's a very long story, but he started reading it at a certain point,
Hmm.
and it makes he gave a little background on what had happened previously, but he read at a certain point and read to the end of the story, and that's always what I do in my class. I ask them to read up to that point, and then I read the rest of
Oh,
it.
cool.
Um, just because it's so powerful to me, and I, as an actor, former actor, whatever, I love that interpretive reading work too, and I sort of take on the characters a little bit and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
But it doesn't really need anything because it's just incredibly powerful prose as it is.
What is really the basis or maybe like a brief summary of that? Just I think
Well,
I have read it, but not in a while.
yeah,
This is a perfect time to pick it up though.
yeah, it is anytime really, but
Yeah.
it's really a very autobiographical story. I mean, a nakedly autobiographical story about his relationship with a distant cousin that he had when he was a child. He was like 7, growing up in Alabama. And she was an elderly woman, but they were very, very close. They had an extraordinarily close relationship. Um, she was I don't know. I know what they would have said at the time, but she had I guess they would have called her simple. She was just had some mental deficiencies, I
Mm-hmm.
guess I should
Mm-hmm.
say, but was a loving, wonderful, deeply religious person, and she just transformed his world, and was the first person to actually get Truman Capote as a child. She understood that he was different. She understood he had these gifts, and he was fascinated by her. And they just spent all their time together. And so this story is a fictionalized but really autobiographical story of that experience and how he and what it's like when he loses her.
Mm.
And I think those descriptions of loss in this story are some of the most touching and powerful descriptions of loss in fiction
Mm.
that I've ever, because he doesn't dwell on the loss, he dwells on what she meant to him.
This
It
relationship, yeah.
Yeah, it's just incredibly beautiful. I never get tired of it. And I sometimes when I read it in class, and I finish it and there's just this hush.
Mm.
There's like you can feel kids holding back the emotion of it.
Mm.
And one time, this girl, oh, I loved her. She just burst into tears. I mean, it was like somebody flipped a switch and she just burst into tears.
Wow.
And it was so great. I mean, she had so gotten it
Yeah.
that it just moved her so much. And I will never forget that moment. Most of them hold it. They're stoic and they hold it in,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I can't always do even as many times as I've read it. But it's
Yeah.
power. I mean, that's the power of great prose will do that.
What is I'm curious now what that point is in the story where you pick up reading. Midway point, or is it just like what exactly is happening at that point that makes it such a special moment to start?
Well, the story is fairly episodic, which makes it easier to pick up um, that at a place like that. I just give it a little bit of context, and no, I can't find it. I don't start at the real sad part. Yeah, it's just deeper into their relationship, and it's at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it kind of jumps when they send Truman, or the character Buddy, as he's called in the story, to military school, where clearly he does not thrive. Being Truman Capote.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Truman Capote, what was so special about him as a person? I know he had like off the charts IQ, right? I mean, he was just super intelligent and insightful. And like, what really was it about him for people who don't know much about Truman Capote?
Just an incredible gift for the most minute and detailed psychological observations of human beings, the good and the bad, and the ability to record that in such precise, like almost granular descriptions. I mean, you just have to look at it to know what it is. You can't miss it. It's that clear. Just that gift of describing in language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did he, so beginning with fiction, how did he pick up the idea for In Cold Blood and pursue that such a different craft of writing? What inspired him to do that? Because that like changed his entire life, writing In Cold Blood, right? I mean, he moved to Kansas, right, for years and spent all of his time and put all of his efforts into writing In Cold Blood and researching and living that life.
Yeah. And took Harper Lee with him, his old childhood friend.
Yeah.
He saw a small, it was just looking in reading New York Times one day, saw a small little piece on this family that had been massacred in Kansas, and just couldn't let go of it. Thought it spoke to him, it sparked something in him. Um, it's interesting because he was a fiction writer, and yet he didn't really approach In Cold Blood as fiction. I mean, it's now we've seen many examples of what he did because he really broke a mold there because it's it's a documentary, it's journalism written with a fictional glaze. I mean, and he takes liberties, but it's the story that happened, and I mean, it's just a hybrid of so many different modes of writing.
The combination of such a shocking story with his writing abilities it's an amazing book.
Yeah, it's kind of unlike any other book, really.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I thought the movie Capote was well done too.
Oh yeah.
About that
Yes.
story, right?
Yes, with the late great Phil Seymour Hoffman.
I thought he did an excellent job.
Very, very fine actor.
I mean, I don't know enough.
No,
I don't know
great.
what you know about acting.
I thought he was great.
Yeah.
It's a good film.
So interesting. Truman Capote.
Yeah.
Christmas Memory.
A Christmas Memory.
Okay, I'll have to read it. And that's a great recommendation to start off with.
I think everybody should read it.
Yeah, love it. John, how did you start teaching English? How did you get to Gilman?
Sort of by accident, kind of teaching English sort of by accident. But I came to Gilman 16 years ago as the writer in residence, and I was only supposed to be here for 1 year.
Was it called the Tickner Fellow?
The Tickner Fellowship, yeah, it still is. It's a very fine fellowship, and I was very honored to be asked to come. I was living in New York, and so I came down here and sublet my apartment in New York, and thought, well, in June I'll be back. And it just didn't. It worked out differently. It worked out that at the end of that year, they asked me if I would stay on for a second year as the writer in residence, and I had a really good experience, and so I said yes, and so I did, and then they asked me at the end of that year if I would take on the theater, directing the theater program in the upper school, because the person who was doing it had gotten married, and he didn't want to spend that kind of time doing it anymore. So they added that, and then they made me permanent faculty and said, so you also have to teach English. You can still teach fiction writing, and but we want you to teach junior English and direct the musical. So that was kind of a cool package.
So you almost fell into teaching.
I did. I mean, I hadn't ever really thought. I mean, I loved English as a student, as a kid, and I thought I could do it. But I mean, I had to, really learn on the job how to teach or to be a junior English teacher. So.
And you were a writer beforehand, and that just led you to the Tickner Writing Fellowship.
Right. I had published my book, and then that gave me opportunities to apply for fellowships and teaching positions, and that's what I was doing. And Gilman, made the offer, and I came here, and still here.
Rest is history.
I know. It's a very improbable story.
But I mean, it's amazing that you found this place and you started to love teaching for whatever reason. I mean,
Yes, all of the above. You're right.
What was it like as a writer for you? You've talked a little bit about how you've always loved English. I've always loved English growing up, and what drew you to writing as a career?
Well, I think what drew me to writing as a career was what drew me to writing as a kid. I mean, I loved stories. I loved storytelling. I loved reading stories, being read to, and then I wanted to do it myself. It's just a reflexive reaction. Not everybody who loves to read wants to write, but I did. And so, I also wanted to be on the stage, which I was. And then, so I just, I had these passions. And
were you on the stage growing up, high school, all of that?
7 years old.
7 years old on the stage.
Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, wow.
My debut. Yes, indeed.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I remember that so vividly. Like, just walking out on stage at the age of 7 years old in my little red sweater, little blue tie.
Yeah.
There was like a sixth grader playing Winnie the Pooh in a big bear costume. It was great. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like, it just was magical for me.
Yeah. I mean, you fell in love with it at that young of an age.
Without a doubt, yeah.
I mean, that's almost a miracle in itself. Is that just almost fell into your lap at 7 years old.
Yeah, but I really pursued it. I mean, I wanted to do this. And it's sort of like with reading. I think it's when I started encountering stories and having books read to me or reading books, my instinct was, oh, I want to keep reading them, but I want to write too. And when I was taken to see a play for the first time, probably at the age of 5 or 6, it wasn't just I love the experience of being in the audience and watching a play. I want to do that. I want to be up on the stage as well.
Yeah. And I've talked about it before on the podcast, and that was a similar experience for me as a lacrosse player too.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
It sounds exactly the same. As a little kid, you go to a sporting event. I went to a lacrosse game. My dad introduced me to lacrosse, and I was like, I want to be out there. I want to score goals out there.
And not everybody does that, right? Some people just love being a spectator or a reader, and that's great, thank goodness. But sometimes, right, something about being at the experience makes you want to be in a deeper part of the experience.
Be a part of it.
Yeah, be doing it.
Yeah, and even to this day, I mean, I like watching sports on TV, but not really. I would much rather be out there doing it myself. I don't even really want to. I appreciate it. I respect it. I respect other athletes. I like, watching games, but I would much rather be a part of it. It's the fun. That's the fun part.
Yeah, I know. But it's kind of like teaching, right? I mean, like I know you're a reader. We talk about books all the time, and isn't it exciting that your love of reading can be transferred into teaching, and that you can impart that to students?
Oh yeah,
that's what's so great about it.
It's not really even a job for me. It's like I wake up and I'm talking to kids about stuff. I'm introducing them to things that I like to do.
I know.
Like, here you go. This is what I was doing last night, and no one was telling me to do it.
Right. I know, right? And that hopefully that they will have a transformative experience because of what you're giving them. And that's the best part too. It doesn't happen all the time. I mean, students are generally really great, but then there's every now and then an experience where you have put something in front of a student. And we're talking, our students are young. They're 16, 17, 18 years old. Mm-hmm. And they get it, and you see them get it, and that something has been tripped in their mechanism, and that's just that they will never forget that. And maybe it's not what you and I are saying about it, or it's just the fact of it, right? Truman Capote doesn't need me to teach him. A Christmas Memory doesn't need what I bring to it. Mm-mm. All I need to do is put it in front of them.
Put it in the syllabus.
And the work teaches them. I just shepherd it,
But I think your passion for it and the way that you just explain the story, it rubs off of anyone who's listening, right?
I guess, I hope. I mean, sometimes I feel like I need to rein my passion in because...
Oh, so do I,
yeah. Yeah.
Slow down, Mr. Scott. It's 8 a.m. Relax.
But I'm always reminding myself to let them discover it on their own and don't oversell it or, I want to put it in front of them. I want them to have that experience of discovery that I had.
Mm-hmm. But the way that you describe it just naturally makes me, and I think it will make other people who just watch that want to go read that story. And that's part of the reason that I asked you to bring something in that has influenced you or that you like, because I think it will rub off on people. I think people will read A Christmas Story or Christmas Miracle because of Christmas Memory. Yeah. Christmas Memory.
I mean, there's a Christmas story. There's Christmas Miracle. There's
Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol, right? Of course, Christmas Carol.
Yep.
There are lots of things.
Man.
Yeah, but it's a good one.
So the musical, I've seen your musicals. They're unbelievable.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And I remember, like, I would be working out here at Gilman my first couple of years, or I'd be on campus for whatever reason, and your car would still be there at like 9 at night,
10
like
midnight.
10 midnight. You guys work very hard on those shows, and it
Yeah.
definitely pays off because there's something else for high school to get high school kids to respond like that and buy in and act like that. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, of course we didn't get to do it last year.
Yeah.
We had a great show through the middle of March, but that was every theater kid in America practically.
Mhm.
It was heartbreaking. I mean, it's all heartbreaking, but very, very sad for kids to have lost their shows that they worked so hard on and that mean so much to them. So
That's your favorite time of the year, though, is when you're directing the musical.
I mean, it's a lot of work. Our colleague here today, who has been with me for so long, the wonderful Cesare Zacanti, and our engineer here today. But Cesare and I have had a long working relationship on making things for the musical, and he's indispensable to me. I didn't get to work with him last year because it got shut down before it was time for us to put our things together that we always do. But
before it even started, you guys had come out with.
Yeah, we had 2 months of rehearsal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were in it.
Oh, we were very very in it.
That's sad.
Yeah.
So how did you, when you first got to Gilman and you were put in charge of the musical as the director, how did you get kids to how did you figure out how to get kids to respond and do what you were asking and put together a show like the ones that you do put together? What did that all take? I know it takes time, but I've never been a part of a musical. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it might take to, or at least, some semblance of what it might take to put together a decent lacrosse team, but I don't know. I have no idea about, how you motivate 15, 16, 17-year-olds to put on a show like that and have the discipline and everything it takes.
Well, it's educational theater, and I mean it's not. I mean, there's so many things I have to teach them from the ground up once they're in the show that if I were directing in a regional theater, those professional actors would come in and they've got all the package and they have all the training and they have all that, and then but kids don't have that, so that's part of it is you're teaching as you're directing. And that's a lot. I mean, it's difficult to do that. And kids come in with at very different levels of being able to do it. But, you want them in there because you want to teach them how to do it. And then, if I have a kid who's in the show as a ninth grader, really a beginner, but if they stay in it and by the time they're a senior, they've got some skills and they know how to employ those skills to be in a show.
So you start out when they come in ninth grade, you start out teaching them really just the basics. And then as they stay in the program, they don't even need to review or rehearse the basic skills when they're juniors and seniors. You can kind of just put them into more.
Well, they know the deal, and the process of doing it is the teacher, really. I mean, this is what happens at rehearsal, and this is what happens at a dance rehearsal, and this is what happens when you work with the musical director one-on-one. I mean, they learn how it all gets put together by doing things separately and individually. And so there's every step of the process is a teaching tool. Mm-hmm. And I'm very respectful of that and very aware of that.
It's all built on top of each other.
Yeah, it really is. It's scaffolded, Yep. But that applies to them, as ninth graders or seniors, because even seniors who have done a show, they still have a great deal to learn, and every show is different, right? Mm-hmm. And even for me as a director, I feel like every time I start directing a show, it feels like I'm doing it for the first time, because every show is really its own thing. And you've got to take this approach with certain things for this show, and that was different than what you did last year, and you've got to do this material requires a certain tone or a way of staging it that's going to make sense. So it's just it's always a different deal.
How do you select a show? Like as we're kind of moving through the year, are you just on the lookout for the perfect show for that year, or what goes into actually choosing? All right, we're gonna reveal this as our
Yeah.
2021 spring show.
I mean, so much goes into it. I sort of always, I'm very aware of who I have and what kids will match certain shows and can I cast it and um, do I have kids with skill sets to be able to do a certain difficult show. When we did the last show we did was Crazy for You, which is an enormous dance piece. Um, but I knew I had some pretty significant senior talent. I actually had junior and senior talent. And I kind of felt like I had kids who could do it, and they did, and they were terrific.
Hmm.
But if in a year where you're not as certain of, maybe you lose a bunch of seniors the year before to college, obviously, you might have to choose something that is a little less demanding, but still is a great educational show.
Right.
That they can learn the craft.
Well, it really does. The more you talk about it to someone who doesn't know really anything, I just show up and appreciate and say this is amazing.
Well, that's how I would be at a lacrosse game.
But the more you're talking about it, it sounds like, okay, we lost these seniors last year. We have these freshmen coming in. They're good in these situations and they have these skill sets. We have to figure out a way to put this group of 40 guys on a lacrosse team or 35 guys or whatever it is into the right spots so that we can have success. It's the same type of like being a director, but it sounds very similar to what you're.
Well, it's part of any academic institution, right? It's a finite time you have with athletes or actors or seniors. I mean, even my hero Roy Williams, in Chapel Hill, he's got kids for a certain amount of time, and increasingly, kids are not staying all 4 years on a basketball team in college for lots of reasons, and you work with people that you have when you have them, and get the best out of them, and hope that they take what you give them onto their next thing. But it's wonderful to be able to grow a student from a ninth grader all the way through 12th grade, whether it's in lacrosse or
that's
theater.
Probably the coolest part is you're seeing them when they come out of middle school, and then you're seeing them when they're about to go to college. It's a totally different person almost.
And you have that perspective as a coach or director of that growth, right? And that's what's wonderful to see is they've really learned.
Yeah, that's pretty rare if you're not a coach or a director of something. You don't get to see that. Even Roy Williams, he's one and done. It's like these days it's you meet them, they play for you, and then they're in the NBA. It's just over.
I know. And even as teachers, we don't typically teach a kid, at least in English we don't. Sometimes foreign language teachers teach kids from 9 through 12, but we don't.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are solidly junior and senior teachers, so we get them after they've been through the 9th and 10th grade curricula, and we don't. Maybe sometimes we get them as seniors after having them as juniors.
Yeah, but from what you've told me, you keep in touch with a good amount of your students once they graduate from Gilman. I think that's pretty cool, and that's part of what makes teaching fulfilling. That I really haven't experienced much yet. Maybe maybe a little bit, but not. I mean, not really.
But you will.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Is because when I started doing the podcast, I was talking a little bit about my 10th grade English teacher, Miss Nordsick, who she showed me the Scarlet Letter for the first time, and that I was already into writing in English, and I knew I liked it, but reading the Scarlet Letter for the first time, for some reason that book clicked with me. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
And I emailed her like out of the blue this summer. I was like, earlier this year, maybe a month or two ago, I was like, Miss Nordsick, I mentioned your name on the podcast because I'm teaching the Scarlet Letter.
Oh, that's so great.
You should come down to Baltimore. It's not too far of a drive. And once COVID's over, and talk about it. And that's like,
that's so cool.
I haven't talked to her in 6 years, 7 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
So I think that's the coolest part maybe about teaching and coaching and staying connected when students come back and you can reconnect.
and knowing what they're doing, and when they're successful. And I mean, I've had a few that have gone out to be, I've done a lot of writing in college, and in fact, I'm writing a recommendation letter now for a kid I taught a long, long time ago. He wants to get his MFA in fiction writing, and I'm super proud of him then, now, and I'm so happy to still be a part of his education in a small way, because I'm just writing a letter saying this guy is awesome and you should take him into your program. But kids who have gone on to work in the theater, and that's so exciting to
Yeah,
me.
for
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Because you really introduced it to them and you showed them what it's all about and what it takes,
Maybe I did a little bit, but it was
Yeah.
their talent is what really takes them,
Yeah. And their interests.
and their interest and their love for it. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I always think I play a small part because they do the work,
Yeah. Yeah, you're just playing on their natural instincts and trying to enhance.
just urging them towards developing what I see that they have.
Yeah. Were there people like that for you, maybe in terms of writing or teaching, or
Oh yeah.
who really made
Yeah.
an impact on you that you think
Oh.
about often?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you're a teacher, I mean, it's just like you were saying, we're so aware of our older teachers, and what they did for us.
But not at the time. I mean, not too much at the time. It's more of a retrospective, at least in my case. Like when I came out of high school, I was like, I did love the Scarlet Letter. I did love that
Oh, you
class.
didn't know at the time? You didn't feel like you knew?
Well, I totally knew at the time, but not maybe to the degree as was the case in looking back and saying, because I've said this before, but like when you reread and you look back at things and you think about what might have influenced me to do this or study this or, appreciate this author, it was that teacher that just gave it to me, in 8th grade. Or said something to me. Like my 5th grade teacher said, "You're a pretty good writer." You don't know anything in 5th grade. You're still like not even half formed. You're just trying to figure out what's for lunch.
Right.
And
but those words have impact at any age.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the power of being a teacher, which I think you must caretake very, very carefully. But it's very powerful to be told when you're young, you have the ability to do this, and know that they mean it and that they've seen something in you. I mean, that's powerful when it happens, and it's powerful to be able to do it later in life too, to really say to a young person, I see something in you that I think you've got, and I want you to do well, right? Let me help you kind of hone that skill, and so you can succeed.
Was there a teacher for you that told you should continue to write, or was that really just on your own? You loved it, you wanted to continue with it, or was there someone or some people who said, "John, you've got a talent here, stick with this"?
Yeah, and sometimes in indirect ways, right? I mean, I knew in 3rd grade my teacher, Mrs. Pick, thought I was a good writer and a good actor, and she would have me read. Sometimes when she got tired of reading to the class, she would ask me to get up and read.
3rd grade.
In 3rd grade, because she knew I would take on the character voices and right. So, and I knew she, must have seen some. I mean, I thought that was kind of cool that she asked me to do that, and yeah, I mean,
that definitely made an impact.
It did. I mean, I knew she let me know that she knew I could do certain things that she wasn't asking other kids to do. Right.
One thing I was interested in talking to you about is constructing a short story. And I know you've written short stories and you have a lot of experience teaching short story writing. I'm teaching great short fiction in the spring, which I'm excited about, and
I want to come be in your class.
Yeah, I'm still choosing some things, but
cool.
I have a lot to learn. And in terms of constructing a short story, how did you learn that process or fall into that process, or like what did it take for you to create a perfect short story
Well,
in
I
your
don't, I
mind?
don't think I've ever created a perfect short
There's
story.
no such thing as perfect writing, really,
No,
but
still working on it. But I mean, I think, it's just from having been a reader so early. I mean, if you're that interested in something and it speaks to you that deeply, you really do, kind of osmose the lessons in ways that you don't even know you're doing, right? It just goes into the mechanism, and it's available to you when you say, okay, now I want to write. I'm going to do this, and then but it took other teachers, and I'm even talking into my adult life, teachers to recognize it and say, yeah, this is good, and or you need to pursue this.
hmm.
Um, so in terms of constructing a perfect story, I think you have to go with if you get a spark about a story, you just start writing. And I tell fiction students, don't edit yourself, just write it. You can always revise something. Getting the first draft out is paramount and the most difficult thing. I love revising. I love rewriting. It's the first draft that's tough.
But when you get a spark about something,
Yeah.
you I mean, you don't really see like where the whole story goes and what the end is and what maybe the like core essence of the story is. You just have,
Sometimes you do.
you know what I
Eudora
mean?
Welty did. I think Eudora sort of always knew where she was heading.
Mm.
I think Shirley Jackson knew where she was heading with the lottery too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think she could have written that story if she hadn't known what that ending was going to be.
that's true.
Right? I
That
mean,
is true.
I'm sure there are interviews. I don't know. She famously didn't talk about it. I think
I
to
wonder
her
what her
credit.
process was like. That movie about her was, it was,
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't really
interesting.
know.
Well, she
What,
wrote the lottery very quickly. She lived in Bennington, Vermont, where I went to graduate school.
hmm.
Shout out to Bennington
Yeah,
MFA program.
yeah.
Um, and she was pushing her child through the town square. Right, there's a town square, and she's got this idea. What if? It's always starts with what if.
Hmm.
She went home and wrote it pretty quickly, 2 days, 3 days, something like that.
Wow.
I, and how she got to, and I won't spoil the ending for anybody who's never read the lottery, though you should read the
I
lottery.
think we can spoil the ending because
No, I don't believe in spoiling endings. I think
really.
there's somebody out there who hasn't read the lottery, and they should have that experience without knowing it. But it's a very shocking ending, and yet she earns it. She earns it because she's scattered clues throughout the story that hide in plain sight.
Hmm.
And until you go back and look at it, you go, "Oh, how could I have missed that?" Well, you missed it because Shirley Jackson is brilliant at hiding something in front of your eyes, and you don't know what it means or what it is.
Well, she has all the other clues that make it sound like a bright and sunny and gorgeous.
Yeah, it's yes. She
Grass is green.
I know. Yeah, Scott. She deceives you.
Everyone's gathering, and it was a great June, right?
Yes.
June morning.
Yes.
We just got done discussing that.
Oh, it's amazing.
So can we? I mean, can we talk about it? Can we just say it's a spoiler alert and then talk about it?
If you want to reveal the ending, one of the all-time greatest endings of one of the all-time greatest stories ever, that's on you, sir. I'm not going to be on record
I think.
ruining the lottery for the great unwashed who have not read it.
Well, I do. I do want to ask you about your interpretation of the story and what you think it is all about, because we just got done discussing that in my junior English class, and I had some really, I had some really strong responses after the boys read it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can say, if you haven't read The Lottery, definitely read it. Push pause. It will take you probably 15 minutes to read, and then resume.
This is on you, Scott.
Okay.
So,
what do you think that story's all about? It's incredible.
well, I think it's about the way human beings treat each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's about ritual. I think it's about
We did talk about traditions and the traditions that
Yeah.
we have that we don't really think about or consider.
Yeah.
Even Thanksgiving, for instance, we read it right after Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. We kill a bunch of turkeys, put them on the,
Yeah.
dining room table and invite all our guests over. It's
Well,
just odd traditions are.
I think she's warning against um, the unchecked
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
in you. Um, just because you have always done something one way, is that the way it should always be done, right? And we do get those places in us that are unchecked that we need to maybe go back and look at again and say, I know I've always thought this, I've always done this, I've always behaved about this in a certain way. I don't know. Should I evolve more? Should I make a change here?
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, the people in that town, in that story, they maybe need to evolve a little past what has been done for decades.
Yes, but I also think what is also masterful about it is that the children are the ones that are introduced first, and the children are the ones who gather the stones and the pebbles first, because this is how they were just this is the we
It's
do it
ritual.
we do it every year. This is what we do. All the adults are doing. Old man Warner's doing it. Why would I ever even question it? But that, I mean, I think that's the lesson. Even if you've been doing something as a child and raised in this environment with these rituals, thinking about it on a deeper level, that's what it's all about to me.
Right. And working in an independent school environment as we do, I think there are a lot of long held rituals and traditions. Um, they're not all bad, of course,
Of course
right?
not. No.
I mean, I think I'm a kind of a creature of tradition. I love
I love
ritual and
tradition.
tradition.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe now and then you need to take them out and look at them and dust them off and put them back in the deepest part of the drawer where they remain, right? Or you just throw them out altogether and say, I'm going to make a change here.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, constantly questioning and
yeah,
having a discussion about it and looking at all aspects of whatever tradition, ritual thing that you do on a daily basis, even.
oh yeah,
You know, just reflection, I think. But the other part of that story that I was maybe even more interested in is just the group mentality, and
yeah.
like I raised this in my class, and I don't know if this is correct, but it'd be cool to hear your perspective on are the people in that town scared? Is there a fear that they can't speak out against this or raise a question because of such a large group and everyone's doing it? Or do they know it's wrong and are scared to say something, or is this just what they do and they don't question it? Because I think that mob group mentality is a part of it too.
I think she gives you some hints of that in the story. I think she doesn't come down too hard on, certainly not a moral. She was, far too crafty of a writer to leave it at that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and now here's what the
Right.
moral of my story. She never would have done that. Um, but I think a great story is always, I said to my class just today, because we're reading another seminal work for me, Thornton Wilder's Our Town. Um, and I said something to them, and I hadn't planned to say this, so it just sort of emerged from our conversation, that ultimately you're the one who owns a work of fiction, right? We can talk about it as a group and we can read it out loud together, but you're all experiencing it very, very uniquely and individually, as you should.
Mm-hmm.
So you own your own experience of reading Our Town or a Capote story or The Lottery.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's fun about English class. We share our different feelings about it.
Yeah, and even as a teacher, that's why it's fun, because I've read The Lottery 10 times, but
Yeah.
my students' responses that they submitted to me, I was learning more about the story and things I didn't notice.
That's the greatest thing about teaching, is when they change your opinion of something you have thought you knew the ins and outs of forever. That's the best part of it.
And I like it when they maybe not disagree with me, but say, Mr. Scott, I saw it a different way. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I'm not a master of Shirley Jackson's The Lottery. I enjoyed it. I mean, as dark it is, I enjoyed how she made me look at something like that and something that's relevant to my life and the world and
It's relevant to everybody's life. Yeah.
to the country
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
human nature. And
Yes.
I'm not a master of what she was trying to say in that story, but I like hearing your thoughts on it, and I like hearing a 16-year-old's thought on it, because
Totally.
he knows something that I don't know about it.
Absolutely. And it's all the perspectives that they bring, right? Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing about teaching is I think sometimes they think you're the authority and they really look to you to be the authority. And that's a lovely, kind gesture. But I want to kind of always disavow them of thinking of me like, I mean, I just want us to talk about it and share our thoughts and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do because I mean the dynamic of teacher and student is kind of set up to be we're in charge of the class and we're saying what the content is and we're grading your papers.
We're giving you homework.
We're giving you homework. We're the quote unquote authority figure. And mechanically, I guess that's true, but in the classroom, I want to create more of a level playing field because their opinions really do matter to me. And I'm always saying, I never thought about that. You know, I'm always reading something a kid's writing and saying, I never thought about that.
Right. Well, especially in English, maybe it's more, and I don't know anything about teaching like physics, but I would maybe be more of an authority figure having studied all this physics and know the, ins and outs and the black and white of a math problem. But in English, I'm definitely not. I mean, I just want to create the atmosphere so you feel comfortable saying, Mr. Scotts, I looked at that from the total opposite perspective, and that's totally okay. And that might be one of the hardest parts to get through to students is there's no like black or white answer. There's no true or false answer in this conversation.
I know.
Hopefully you can defend what you're saying, not defend it, but like have some evidence from the actual text so we can see what you're talking about. But other than that, there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, just tell me why you feel that way. Don't just say something and leave it there. Say, great. What made you say that? What made you feel that way? And just dig deep on your own opinions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I know.
But I don't know why that is, but it seems like when students come into 11th grade English, just in my experience, it's like they think there's one right or wrong answer. I have to just totally chop that down.
Yeah, I know.
It just might be the instinct.
And they also want to please you, and that's also, I know I wanted to do that badly when I was a kid and being in classes, but I want them to have their own aesthetic and their own opinions and thoughts. And when they really are convicted about how they feel about something, then I'm pleased, right? Because then they are working from their own points of view and not just parroting, what they've read, some scholar has written, or what I've said, or something. That's the thing. You just really want them to think independently about all of this work.
And do exactly what I think the lottery to some degree teaches is think critically about it. Separate yourself from the group and think on your own and say, what are we doing here? What is this all about? What's my actual true opinion on this? What's right? What's wrong? I mean, what does it mean to me?
I had a kid, we were talking about our town, and he said, I've never lived in a small town, so I'm trying to figure out how this is about me. He said, but I'm starting to see how it can be. And so we've talked about the universality of it and how the specificity of Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, actually is the key to opening it up to the universal. It's a lot to sort of talk about, but I said to them, it's you. No matter who you are, or where you come from, or what you think, or what you do, you are in this play. everybody is in this play, because it's not called Grover's Corners, it's not called Their Town, it's called Our Town, and
Mm-hmm.
just the very title alone is inclusive. Um, and of course, it's been performed in every corner of the world,
Mm-hmm.
so it speaks to anyone and everyone, no matter the culture or the background. And I want them to find themselves in this play,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they will. I mean, we've really just done Act One, so I think by the time they get to that very sad third act is when they will start to understand. But it's very hard to talk to 16-year-olds about mortality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And part of me doesn't really want to talk to them about mortality, because I'm not sure I thought much about it when I was 16.
No way. I mean, I was trying to talk to my group about the soul. What is the soul
Oh yeah,
today? And Walt Whitman, and
yeah.
it's just a tricky subject because when I was 16, I was thinking about the
Uh,
Ravens game
I
tonight.
know, but I think it seeps in. I
It
mean,
definitely does.
I think that they do get it, and um maybe they don't want to dwell on it. I didn't either. But the older you get, the this play changes on you. I mean, I remember when I read it when I was like 14 or 15, and I mean, I had a very different experience of it then. I had a 15-year-old's experience of it, which is how it should be. And I'm aware that, I'm having my own new experience with it every time I teach it. But mostly my experience with teaching Our Town, it sort of goes through their experience of it when they share what they think. And then I'm sort of taken back to the 16-year-old I was reading Our Town. So
Mm.
it's kind of it's interesting. I mean, because I know this text so well and this play so well, that what I'm really interested in is seeing how they interpret it
Mm-hmm.
and what they take from it. And some of them really get the mortality aspect of it. Some of them kind of resist it, but everything that happens in this play is going to happen to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Right.
Um,
Right. If it wasn't universal, it wouldn't survive the test of time and even be even
right.
considered to be taught. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think you're exactly right. It depends on when the stories hit you. It could hit you at the perfect time when you're 15 or 16. It could hit you at the perfect time when you're older. I mean, it
Yeah.
just
Oh,
just
yeah.
depends on where you are in your life when a work of literature hits you.
Completely. It's true.
How often do you read on your own? Like, what are you reading right now, just on the side from the things that you're teaching? Are you picking anything up? I
Oh,
know
I
I know I have such a strange reading habit. Like, I'll pick something up, read it, be really invested in it, put it down for a second, and all of a sudden I see something in the library and
I
it's
know.
restarting.
Well, I'm a chronic book buyer,
Oh,
and I
same.
just I just have stacks of things that I just can't stop buying them. I want to support writers,
So,
but I also think I will eventually get to it.
mhm.
Yeah, so you know,
Yep, I have the same habit. Can't go into Barnes and Noble.
right? No, but I mean, as English teachers, we are reading for our work so much,
Mhm.
right? Even though reading for pleasure, you could say that's also part of what we do, but sometimes it's hard to, after you've studied what you're going to teach the next day and reread it and looked up things and looked at your old notes and everything. That's what I always do. And then I just kind of want to, turn on Netflix. But
Yeah,
if
something
there's even
else.
time at the end of the night to
Hmm.
do that, because you've graded and you've read and,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you don't want to pick up another book. You've been looking at
you
text all
kind of,
day and
kind of,
different medium or
right.
something else,
You've been,
music, Netflix,
yeah,
change it up.
you've been grading, you've been reading student work. Sometimes just reading one more thing is like, oh,
Do you do much read? I'm sure you do a lot of reading in the summertime.
I
That's when you
do,
when you
yeah.
get a lot done.
And well, after when we left last spring, I did more reading from March to September than I had done in years. I
Hmm.
mean, I found books to be even more of a sanctuary than I had. I mean, as a kid, books were a sanctuary to me. They were an escape for me because I was that kid. I didn't want to go on the playground, but I wanted to be in the library and read.
Hmm.
Protective, sanctuary, all those things. I found that to be true last spring because it was so scary and it was such a new territory that we were all in, and I, never lived through anything like that. We're still
Yeah,
living through it, right?
really are.
And so I found books to be incredibly valuable,
Yeah.
maybe in
I mean,
a new way.
kind of lucky that we love to read. And, when we were in lockdown, I remember I was at my house. It was like, this isn't so bad. I could just knock out some of this stack that I have sitting here of my Barnes and Noble books. But
Oh
um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, for other people, they've like, what do I do? I'm bored out of my mind.
I know.
Like,
Yeah, you're right. I was really glad I had that.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so, what have you found to be in terms of virtual teaching and this hybrid model? Have you kind of found anything that's worked really well for you in the classroom with the students that people might be able to incorporate into their English classes or their classes?
Oh, I don't think I'm an expert. I mean, I was just so grateful to be able to learn how to sort of do it. I mean, I had never heard of Zoom.
Canvas, Zoom.
Yeah, last March, I remember asking Madeline, our colleague who was here last year. I said, because she was in the office across from me, and I said, "What is? I keep hearing about this thing, Zoom. What is Zoom? Is
Yeah.
that like Skype?"
Wow, I can't even imagine the day I hadn't heard of Zoom.
It's
It's
ubiquitous now.
every day.
It's where it's all we do. And somebody was saying the other day on TV, after the pandemic is over, what's going to happen to Zoom? Right? Is Zoom going to be like a relic of a period of time?
Well, I was saying
I
there.
don't know.
Hmm. No, I think people are going to use Zoom all the time still. Maybe not. I mean, obviously not as much, but
Yeah.
like there's never going to be another snow day, which people don't really
Yes,
think
I
about.
know. No, I thought about that. Honestly, I really I had that thought before anybody else had that thought.
Did you?
I know I
You're
did.
claiming
I'm
that.
absolutely getting the patent on that thought because I remember thinking, I think in late March, I was like, we were starting doing the Zoom classes, and I was like, okay, oh wait a minute, this means that on a snow day we could go on Zoom. Snow days have just died,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was the first person to think of that.
That's amazing. I did not know that. Why didn't you tell me that? I'd
Well, I
think.
was holding out for bigger money, you know. So.
um,
But you're
Jo-
right. And that's, is that such a bad thing? I used to worry that I lost class time,
yeah.
because we couldn't come to school for snow. Of course, now it never snows anymore.
Yeah, it really
So,
does. I was saying that today. I mean,
right,
as cold
when,
as it is here in Baltimore today,
yeah,
it's not even close to snowing.
I don't even remember. We haven't had a snow day here in two
We didn't
years?
have one last year yet.
3 years,
3 years.
says Cesare. 3 years, he would know. I'll
Yeah.
trust that.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Oh well. But it's true though. It used to put you way behind in class. The kids didn't care, but you cared.
Well, because you lose those 80 minutes, and it's
And you might even lose a whole like part of a unit or something. And when you plan, that's kind of a little seismic there to lose that much teaching time. But
yeah. I've been less kind of. I don't know if this is good or bad, but less concerned about planning too much during
yeah,
this
I
time.
me
It's
too.
kind of
Me
I'm
too.
kind of just on a working schedule. It's like, all right, how are these guys doing? Are they zoomed out? Can they take another assignment? Like, what's the length of the reading I need to give them? There's not a similar blueprint as I've had in the past couple of years. It's more just
Yeah.
reading them and trying to read the room a little bit, I guess.
I kind of feel like kids have gotten better at reading and doing homework in the pandemic. I remember thinking in last spring, they were really doing the work that I was asking them to do. and they were showing up to Zoom class ready to talk, and I was sort of like, suddenly, this is hard to believe, but English class is an alleviation to boredom.
Hmm.
And I'll take that, right? I'll make it as fun as I can make it.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of was for me too. I mean, I really looked forward to classes because those days were long, those long amorphous shapeless days. You didn't know what day it was, time changed, everything
It was a
changed.
crazy
I
time.
know. So I felt like they really, because they weren't, high school kids are famously over programmed, and our kids for sure are,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't rushing to rehearsals or practice or all
Mm-hmm.
of these things, club practices, everything. I mean, their world kind of shrank,
Yeah, and
and as ours
everyone
did
needs
too.
structure, and
Yeah,
those 80 minutes or
I
whatever
know.
every day where it's English class, it's okay. Now I know when to wake up. I know when to
Right.
log on to Zoom. I
Yeah.
know what I need to do right after. I have time to make it as good as I can.
Yeah.
So
And they were anxious to be with one another too.
I think so.
So
I think still they are. And the
yeah.
guys that I had in my class today, we were doing I'm continuing to try to get them to like refresh themselves and have some like gratitude for the situation, as crappy as it is at times. So we do a little gratitude at the beginning of class, just thinking about what are some things that are going
Oh,
well
that's
today. What's
nice.
good?
Yeah.
Maybe it's one delight. Maybe it's a small thing like your coffee tasted good or whatever. You had
Oh, that's
bacon, egg, and
cool.
cheese this
Yeah.
morning. So I found that I just started it really this week, but just sharing that with each other, it's like, all right, that sets a positive tone,
Yeah, that's a good thing to do. Yeah, I like that.
even though it's 8 a.m. Like we're on a screen again. It's
Right.
cold out, whatever it is. I mean,
Yeah.
look at all it's amazing that we can just send our pixels to each other and still learn about Walt Whitman today. It's an amazing thing. How does that happen?
Right,
How
but
how would they have done this in
20 years ago,
20 years ago?
10 years ago,
How would they
right?
have had school? What would I mean, they wouldn't.
I know I've thought about this so much. Like we really should be grateful for these things that have allowed us to keep going. I mean, I know it's not ideal, and it's cost a lot of people a lot of things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I mean, I think it's a lot easier with high school kids to teach online than it has been for
mm-hmm,
younger kids,
for
and
sure.
those teachers, I mean, they're heroes. My hat is so off to teachers in the lower school and the lower grades, because I think that's really, really challenging
Yeah,
to
I
teach
think it's
little
just
kids.
maybe just learning a new skill set for whatever age level you're trying to teach to. Because if I was teaching fifth grade, I mean, first of all, I don't know what I would do, but
Yeah, no.
I would have to develop a whole new way of getting fifth graders to buy in and think about what I'm giving them than I would for an 11th grader who
Yeah,
already has some of that motivation and
it would
really
probably be nothing that we're doing now with 11th and 12th
no
grade.
way, no
I don't
way.
I don't think anything we're doing now would work with fifth grade.
Hmm.
I wouldn't. I'm well suited to what I teach and to the age I teach.
Hmm.
I don't know, but the middle school teachers, they're amazing because they always say, I don't know how
Yeah,
you teach the upper school. I don't know how you do that. I'm like, well, how do you teach a 11, 12 year old? I wouldn't know how to do that.
and people say that to us too who don't teach. They're
That's
like,
right. Yeah.
how are teachers doing it right now? And now that we're used to it, it's not really a big deal. It's just,
Yeah.
you know,
Somehow I don't know. I've just sort of been able to adapt what I think I did successfully in the classroom, and somehow make it work, and
mhm.
and and again, it just goes back to put something that's really good in front of their eyes, and it will do its own thing for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're just giving them what you love, and you're
Yeah.
bringing your passion to it. Even though it's on a screen, it still
Right.
comes across. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's been it's definitely been a journey. It's been challenging.
It has. Yeah.
It's amazing how quickly high school and everyone really has adapted to the situation. Now it's like going to market, you just put your mask on, you leave, you know, everyone's just figured it out. It's almost habit now for
maybe not everybody, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe not.
But certainly in our environment here, I think the students have been really great about it, and you know, it's good to be young and adaptable, right? And I think that they have proven that they really are.
Yeah. So, John, it's been an absolute pleasure to get you on the podcast today.
Thank you, Jake. Yeah, I'm really honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, been talking about it for a while, but finally made it happen.
I am so glad. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on, and great, air shake.
Air shake.
Have a good rest of the week.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.